I didn't notice her the first week I moved in. That's not unusual for me. I keep to myself. Work, groceries, a little reading at night. I come and go with headphones in. The building has this way of swallowing people whole. Everyone disappears behind their doors. But then there was the morning at the corner cafe. I'd been there twice before, the kind of place where the lights are soft, and the espresso machine hisses like it's irritated at being awake so early. I was standing in line rehearsing what I wanted, small cappuccino, nothing fancy, when she turned slightly from the counter. She was holding a paper cup, blowing at the steam. Mid-40s, maybe? Hair pulled back like she didn't try, but it landed right anyway. Her eyes caught mine, not long, just enough to register I was new. The kind of look neighbors give, half curious, half measuring. I looked away too fast, at the chalkboard menu. When it was my turn, the barista asked, "The usual?" I blinked. "Sorry?" The barista smiled. "She ordered for you. Said you're the new guy in 3B. Cappuccino, right?" I glanced sideways. She was still near the door, waiting, stirring something into her coffee with a wooden stick. My voice got stuck halfway between thanks and confusion. By the time I picked up the cup, she was walking out. Just a small nod at me, almost invisible, like she'd pressed her acknowledgement into the air and left it there for me to deal with. That night back in my apartment, I kept thinking about that nod. Who notices someone enough to order their coffee after 2 mornings? I stared at my phone, half writing a text to no one, "Funny thing happened today," before deleting it. The next time I saw her was at the mailboxes downstairs. She was pulling envelopes out one by one, checking them like she didn't quite want to open them. I said, "Thanks for the coffee. Too flat, too late." She didn't look surprised. Just a little shrug. "You looked like someone who forgets to eat breakfast." I laughed under my breath, more at myself than her. "That obvious?" Her eyes flicked down to the key I was twisting in my hands. "It's fine. We all forget something." Then she turned and climbed the stairs slowly, like she was thinking of other things. That line stayed with me longer than I expected. We all forget something. The following days fell back into routine, work, silence, the occasional sound of footsteps above my ceiling. But I caught myself listening for her door sometimes. Or noticing when 2 mugs were left drying on her counter when her blinds tilted open. I told myself it was curiosity, nothing more. That's what people do when they're alone. They collect details about strangers like loose change. Still, there was the night it shifted. I was sitting on my couch with the TV on low, half asleep, when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Just a line. No one has to know. I stared at the screen so long the TV timed out to black. And that was the first time I realized the quiet next door wasn't just quiet. It was waiting. I didn't answer her text right away. I read it once, twice, then locked my phone like if I ignored it, the words would fold back into nothing. No one has to know. But the next evening, when I was carrying groceries up the stairs, she opened her door at the same time. A bag of oranges slipped from mine, rolling down the step. She bent before I did, picking one up, her hand brushing the edge of mine as she placed it back into the bag. "Thanks," I muttered. She didn't step back right away. "You cook?" I shook my head. "Trying to learn. Mostly failing." She tilted her head, half smiling. "Then you're already ahead of most people." A pause then. "Tea?" I should have said no. But I followed her inside. Her apartment was quieter than mine, softer. A lamp in the corner, books stacked unevenly by the sofa. The kind of place that looked lived in, not staged. She set 2 mugs down on the table, steam curling between us. "You moved here for work?" she asked. "Yeah. Office job. Nothing exciting." I sipped the tea, too hot, burned the edge of my tongue. "You've been here a while?" She nodded, eyes dropping to her hands around the mug. "Since the divorce." No hesitation in the word, but it landed heavy. I didn't know what to say, so I let the silence sit. She filled it after a beat. "It's quieter now. Sometimes too quiet." Something in the way she said it made me think of my own apartment, half-empty fridge, muted TV, the unsent texts I kept deleting. Yeah, I said softly. I know what you mean. She looked up then, really looked, like she was checking if I was serious. I held her gaze longer than I should have. The conversation drifted after that. Small things. Work. Books on her shelf. The sound of rain starting against the window. Nothing important, but I kept noticing the nearness of her hand on the table, the way her laugh came out low, like she was trying not to disturb the quiet. Somewhere between finishing the tea and standing to leave, the thought pushed in, what if someone saw us like this? A neighbor walking by, her son visiting, anyone who'd read into it more than they should. She was twice my age, lived next door, carried a history I couldn't pretend to understand. I told myself it was harmless. Just neighbors. Just tea. But at the door, when I thanked her, she reached out and straightened the collar of my jacket with 2 fingers. Quick. Ordinary. Except I felt it long after. I don't know why that moment stayed with me. Maybe because it felt like someone finally saw me. The next time wasn't planned. I was coming back late, arms full of laundry, when her door opened just as I passed. She was barefoot, hair loose, holding a book like she just put it down mid-sentence. You're up late, she said. Yeah. Machines were finally free. I lifted the laundry bag like proof. She stepped aside before I could think. You can fold in here. Easier than balancing everything on your couch. I wanted to laugh at the excuse, but I didn't. I followed. Her place smelled faintly of citrus and something floral. She set the book down on the counter, half open, pages splayed like wings. We sat across from each other, shirts and towels in small stacks between us. The silence wasn't uncomfortable. It was too comfortable. She asked, almost offhand, Your family close by? No. Out of state. I folded a shirt too neatly, then unfolded it, trying again. Don't see them much. She nodded slowly, smoothing the edge of a towel. I don't see mine much either. Not anymore. Her voice softened. My son, he visits when he can. The word son sat between us like something sharp. I pictured him older than me, maybe, or not by much. The thought pressed into my chest. Before I could answer, there was a knock on her door. Quick, uneven. We both froze. She moved first, sliding the laundry aside, lowering her voice. Stay here. Through the door, a neighbor's voice floated in. Hey, just checking if you got the notice about the water shut-off tomorrow. Her reply was polite, practiced. Yes, thank you. Good night. The lock clicked back into place. She leaned against the door a moment longer than necessary, exhaling as if she'd been holding her breath. When she turned back, her eyes flicked to me, then away. See? Can't even fold laundry in peace. I tried to smile, but my throat was dry. The knock had shifted something. Made the quiet feel fragile, like anyone could push their way in and name it for what it wasn't supposed to be. We finished folding without talking much. The space between our arms seemed thinner than before, the rhythm slower. I kept imagining the brush of her hand against mine. When I stood to leave, she walked me to the door. Close. Too close. Her hand lifted, just for a second, like she might touch my arm, or stop me, or say something else. But she pulled it back, fingers curling into her palm. I could feel the words we didn't say hovering. Heavy. I leaned in a fraction. Stopped myself. So did she. And for a heartbeat, it was both too much and not enough. It was a Sunday afternoon when we ended up walking together. Not planned. I was heading down the street with headphones in, and she was just ahead, carrying a canvas bag of groceries. I almost turned back to avoid it. Almost. Instead, I caught up. Need help? She hesitated before handing me the bag. It's not heavy. But thank you. We walked side by side, not speaking at first. The neighborhood was quiet, just the sound of our steps on uneven pavement. She stopped once to adjust her sleeve, and I noticed the faintest tremor in her hand. You always walk alone? I asked. She gave a half laugh. What else is there? Then softer. People my age don't exactly start over. I didn't know how to answer. My chest felt tight. I wanted to tell her she didn't seem old. That when I saw her, I didn't think of numbers, just presence. But the words stayed behind my teeth. At the park, we sat on a bench, the bag between us like a boundary neither wanted to touch. Kids played on swings in the distance. A couple walked past with a dog. She leaned back, closing her eyes briefly, as if the sun was too much. Then, quietly, sometimes I think I'm unfair. Letting you sit here with me. Letting you drink my tea. You should be. She trailed off, shaking her head. Anywhere else. Her words stung more than I expected. Why? Her eyes turned toward me, searching. Because I don't know what I want from this. Her voice dropped. From you? The silence stretched. My pulse was loud in my ears. I swallowed. I don't know either. But I keep showing up anyway. Her lips pressed together, like she was holding something back. Then, when you knocked that first night, I almost didn't open the door. I told myself it was safer that way. But I didn't want safe. That landed in me like a stone. I couldn't look away from her. Every small sound around us, kids laughing, leaves moving, faded until it was only her voice, her face. I don't know what this is, she whispered, almost to herself. But it scares me. I wanted to reach for her hand, but I didn't. I just let my knee shift closer, enough that the fabric of her sleeve brushed mine. She exhaled, eyes fixed on the ground. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me this is nothing. I couldn't. My mouth opened, closed. And then the quiet turned heavy, almost unbearable. She turned her head slightly, lips parting as if a confession was forming. But she stopped. And all that was left between us was a question neither of us dared finish. The next week, she changed. Not in any big way. Just smaller movements, harder to name. I passed her once in the hallway. She had her keys in hand, head lowered, a quick smile that didn't stay long enough to meet her eyes. Another night, when I almost knocked on her door, I heard voices inside. A man's laugh, faint but real. My knuckles hovered over the wood, then lowered. I told myself it was nothing. A friend. A relative. Still, I walked back to my apartment, pulse dragging. Days folded into each other. No tea. No quiet folding of laundry. Her blinds stayed drawn. When I finally saw her again, outside the building, slipping into her car, she stopped just long enough to say, "My son's visiting." She didn't elaborate. I didn't ask. But the way she said it, careful, weighted, like a warning, stayed in my chest long after the car pulled away. For a while I tried to convince myself I was imagining everything. That it had been nothing more than small moments stretched too thin by silence. That it was better this way. But the truth was messier. I'd sit on my couch, staring at my phone, thumb hovering over her name. I'd type something simple, coffee tomorrow, then erase it. Try again, still up, then erase that too. The drafts piled like ashes in my head. Once, I caught myself waiting outside the cafe, hoping she might walk in. She didn't. I left my cup half finished on the table. It wasn't heartbreak. It wasn't even anger. It was something else. I felt paused. Like life forgot to finish the sentence. It happened on a Thursday night. Rain had just started, soft against the windows, the kind that makes the air smell clean. I was coming up the stairs when her door opened. She stepped out with a bag of trash, paused when she saw me. For a second, it felt like the weeks of distance never happened. Just two neighbors passing. But neither of us moved. "You've been quiet," she said. I tried to smile. "So have you." Her hand tightened on the trash bag. She lowered it to the floor, as if it wasn't the point anymore. "My son, he stayed longer than I thought. I didn't want." She broke off, looking down the hall, anywhere but at me. "You didn't want me to see," I finished for her. She gave the faintest nod. The silence stretched, thick with everything we hadn't said. My chest ached with the weight of it. Finally, I spoke before I lost the nerve. I kept waiting for it to make sense. Why I kept showing up. Why I couldn't stay away. My voice faltered. It doesn't make sense. Her eyes finally lifted to mine. Wet, though she wasn't crying. Do you think it makes sense for me? I opened the door and half of me wants to slam it shut. The other half. She trailed off, shaking her head. We were standing too close now. I could see the fine lines near her eyes, the way her lips pressed tight like they were holding back words she'd regret. I'm not asking for anything, I said quietly. I stopped, hands useless at my sides. I just needed you to know. Her breath caught. She looked at me as if the truth itself had tilted the room. Then, slowly, she reached up and touched my sleeve. Just her fingers resting there, nothing more. But it steadied something in me. I don't know where this goes, she whispered. I don't even know if it should. I don't either. The rain filled the silence again. We stood in the dim hallway, neighbors, almost something else. She let out a small laugh, soft, exhausted. Then maybe we don't know together. It wasn't an answer. It wasn't a promise. But when her hand lingered on my arm, and I nodded, it was enough. Okay, I said. And for the first time, the word felt like more than just agreement. It felt like a beginning we weren't sure we were allowed to have. Time didn't change things all at once. It just settled them, little by little. She still left her blinds half drawn, but now sometimes I'd see the shadow of 2 mugs on her counter. 1 black coffee, 1 tea. I still went to the cafe in the mornings, but more often than not, she was there too. Sometimes we sat together, sometimes across the room. Sometimes just a nod. The barista stopped asking questions. It wasn't a love story you could point to. No sudden declarations, no dramatic scenes. Just the way I started leaving my door unlocked when I carried groceries up the stairs. The way she left the porch light on when she knew I was working late. Once, we walked to the park again. The same bench. The swings still creaked. She had her bag of oranges beside her, and I caught her watching a young couple walking their dog. She smiled faintly, then looked at me. What? I asked. Nothing. But her hand found mine under the bench, quiet and certain. And for once, there was nothing else to say. Even the silences changed. They weren't heady anymore. Just pauses, like commas. Spaces where we could breathe. I thought back sometimes to that first cappuccino. To the way she told me I looked like someone who forgot breakfast. To the message that blinked across my screen, no one has to know. Maybe she was right back then. Maybe no one did have to know. Because what we had wasn't about being seen. It was about being felt. At 8:47 one morning, weeks later, I caught her waiting outside the cafe, leaning against the window. No reason, no excuse. Just waiting. And when I walked up beside her, she handed me a cup without looking. Your usual, she said. I smiled. Thanks. We stood there, sipping in silence while the city moved around us. It wasn't perfect. It didn't need to be. It was ours. Did this story stay with you? What kind of quiet, real love stories do you want to hear next?